Hi everyone, I'm Ryan and I'll be your host for this chapter. We're going to begin our journey with property and rights, so let's jump right in and get started. Property rights form the foundation of ownership and control over land and buildings. These rights define the legal and equitable interest that individuals and entities hold in real property. This chapter provides a comprehensive introduction to real estate property and rights, exploring the various aspects and principles that underpin this vital sector of the economy. Understanding the principles of real estate property and rights is essential for real estate professionals, property owners, investors, and anyone interested in the dynamic and ever-changing world of real estate. By grasping these concepts, individuals can navigate the complex landscape of property ownership and transactions with confidence and informed decision-making. By the end of this chapter, you'll be able to describe and differentiate the physical and economic characteristics of real and personal property. You'll be able to define and differentiate property rights, including tangible and intangible rights associated with real estate. You'll be able to describe the general personal rights associated with ownership of real property and rights that you do not have. And you'll be able to describe the general rights that the government or local municipality has as it relates to your ownership of real property. Land includes the earth's surface, the air above, and the ground below, all the way to the center of the earth. Almost anything that's a part of the soil or on top of it is considered to be a part of the land or real property. Water related to real property refers to any body of water associated with a specific piece of land or property. This can include both natural bodies of water like rivers, lakes, and streams, and artificial bodies of water like ponds, fountains, and swimming pools. When it comes to water related to real property, water rights are an important consideration because they determine who has the right to use and access the water. Water rights are separate from property ownership and can be bought, sold, and transferred independently. Proper water management in relation to real estate is critical to ensuring its sustainability and avoiding conflicts between different users. Any part of land covered by water in the U.S. may be subject to complicated federal laws such as the Federal Clean Water Act, the Submerged Land Act of 1953, and various other local government laws. Be sure to remember that water is a valuable natural resource that is critically managed in many areas. Any alterations, additions, or enhancements made to a piece of land or a building that increases its value, functionality, or overall desirability are considered improvements. Improvements can be both structural and non-structural in nature and are typically intended to increase the usefulness, aesthetics, or marketability of the property. Physical changes to the property's buildings or structures are considered structural improvements. This can include activities such as building new structures, adding rooms or floors, renovating existing structures, installing or upgrading utilities such as plumbing or electrical systems, or performing repairs and maintenance to ensure the property's structural integrity. Non-structural improvements, on the other hand, are concerned with improving the land itself or adding amenities that add to the property's appeal. Landscaping, creating gardens or outdoor living spaces, installing fences, or adding features such as patios, decks, or porches are all examples of this. The purpose of these improvements can vary depending on the property's type and the owner's or developer's goals. They can boost the property's market value, attract potential buyers or tenants. They can improve functionality and livability. They can meet regulatory requirements or safety standards, or just simply improve the property's aesthetics and enjoyment. Next, we'll cover the physical and economic characteristics of real estate. The physical characteristics are as follows. It's immobile, meaning it can't be moved. It's indestructible. The improvements that we just discussed can be removed, but the main plot of land cannot be destroyed. And it's non-homogeneous, meaning no two parcels are identical. Following are the economic properties. Land is finite and unique, making it scarce, so it can't just be created or replicated, and it can't change its physical location. Buildings that are nearly identical can exist, but the one on the corner of Main Street may be more valuable than the one tucked right behind. So you can't create or recreate fresh land, but you can modify it by building a unique structure on it. As you probably already understand, typically, the greater the improvement, the greater the value that is realized. As a result, even improvements have their own economic characteristics. Real estate is also considered non-liquid, meaning transactions can take some time to complete, so profits also take time to be realized. And the last economic characteristic is called the law of situs. Because there are significant variances in the laws of different jurisdictions, Determining the location of the property as well as the regulatory approvals and constraints are critical. The location of the land and its improvements have a significant impact on the overall economic, physical, and legal characteristics. Corporeal rights are non-physical rights linked to a specific piece of real estate, such as the right to use or access a certain component of the property. Incorporeal means having no material existence, so these are intangible rights that cannot be physically possessed, yet they can be legally owned and transferred just like any other type of property. One example is easements, which provide someone the right to use a piece of property for a defined purpose. One you most likely use every day is a public easement, such as the right-of-way for a road or utility line. Air rights are another example and allows the owner the right to use the airspace above the property. And the last example are mineral rights, which grant the owner the right to extract minerals from the property. Understanding incorporeal rights is critical for real estate professionals since they can have substantial impact on the property's value and use, as well as the rights of nearby property owners. Transferring real property can be accomplished through a variety of methods, including sale, gift, inheritance, or eminent domain. A sale is the most common type of transfer in which the seller conveys the property to the buyer in exchange for consideration, which is usually money. Certain legal requirements must also be met in order to transfer real estate. This includes having a valid deed, which is a written document in which the seller transfers ownership of the property to the buyer. Before real estate can be transferred, the title to the property must also be examined to ensure the seller has the legal right to convey the property. This includes a review of public records such as deeds, mortgages, and liens to determine whether the property is encumbered. Then a closing is held, which is a meeting between the buyer, seller, and their respective attorneys or representatives to complete the transfer of the real property. The buyer will typically pay the seller the purchase price at the closing, and the deed will be signed and delivered. Following the closing, the deed must be recorded with the proper government agency, which is usually the county recorder's office. This serves as public notice that ownership of the property has changed hands and that the buyer now owns it. The recording of the deed also establishes the buyer's ownership rights as preceding any subsequent claims or liens on the property. And that concludes part 1. Continue on to part 2, and we'll jump into personal property related to real estate.